What's up, you guys? What's up? What's up? What's up? We're back. We're at the Acropolis of Athens currently. Trying to get to know what it was like in classical Greece. I think it'd be good to start. First of all, let me just switch up the character just to get a different look. So now I like how this tells me who's real and who's fictional. Even though I could figure it out from the last game, but now this is telling you who's real and who's a fictional character in the game. So that's what's up. I'm gonna be maybe a mercenary. In the tour we're gonna go on, it has to be, where should we start? They're suggesting I do daily life. They want me to learn about the daily life. So let's do it. I'm gonna start off with daily life. Gotta be well-rounded. It says citizens in arms. Oh wait. Greek troops were mostly militia members. The wealthiest citizens joined the cavalry and the hoplite foot soldiers. They had to supply their own equipment and food. I put a spell on you. Binding curses were used to harm enemies or grave robbers, get justice, or attract someone you desired. The Athenian Golden Age, democracy, tragedy, comedy, medicine, history, and classical art and architecture all emerged in the 5th century BCE Athens, where philosophy also rose in status. The origins of math, what we call mathematics today, emerged specifically in the 5th century BCE and consisted of 4 sciences. I quit the tour. Alright, we're going to go on a daily life tour. It's going to take us about 16 minutes.
Greetings, Wanderer. It is my pleasure to introduce you to a unique tour. One that won't take you to impressive landmarks or famous battle sites, but through a typical Athenian home.
The audio's kind of low. Let me see. See if I can get the audio turned up just a little bit. Oh, it says it's all the way up. Alright.
For an outgoing people like the Greeks, the house was a refuge of privacy. Inside, they could escape from the constant demands of civic life to enjoy the simple pleasures of family life. Look for me when you are done, and we can discuss the things you've seen. Farewell for now.
The house, or oikos, was a residence for Greek families and their slaves. Contrary to modern houses, which look outward, the Greek household was built to look inward on a courtyard. The courtyard was the house's central fixture. It was the building's main source of daylight, and also the location of religious altars dedicated to worship. The building itself was made up of familiar accommodations, including bedrooms, storage rooms, a kitchen, and a living room. Women were generally in charge of tending to the home, which in Greece was called oikonomia, a term that inspired the modern word economy.
Wow. Alright, so this is a scene of women in the house. That's funny in 2025. From a red figure, Pixies. This is from between 500 and 470 BCE, classical Greece. So let me move the text. Okay. It says certain rooms in Greek households were reserved exclusively for women and female slaves. These rooms were known as gyna, gynaconotis, gynaconitis, gynaconitis, or gynecon. Gynecon. The gynecon were entirely separated from the men's section of the home, the andron by a strong door, and were frequently situated in the house's upper stories. Men often hosted drinking parties called symposia in their section of the house. Women, meanwhile, kept to their section to pursue activities like tending to their appearance, looking after children, spinning and weaving, and playing musical instruments. Okay, that sounds like kind of traditional, which, you know, is a little surprising because I expect the Greek culture to be more what we consider liberal. In some ways it definitely is, but that sounded very traditional. Pericles' home. Okay. Pericles at the deathbed of his son. Oil painting from what? By Felix Henry Giacomotti, 1828-1909. So this painting, I think they're saying it's from 1851, and it's in Paris. It says Pericles was one of the most influential men in Athenian politics during the second half of the 5th century BCE. Historians even refer to the period he was in power as the Age of Pericles. Okay, what was his role? This is what I'm trying to figure out. Athens flourished under Pericles' leadership. With his guiding hand, the Delian League transformed into the Athenian Empire, and all the league's members were made to regularly pay tribute to the city. Because of this new income, Athens was able to erect extravagant monuments on the Acropolis, such as the famous Parthenon. During the Peloponnesian War, Pericles' strategy was to conduct a naval war, preferring to keep himself within the walls of Athens. However, as a consequence of the city's overpopulation, a plague spread through the population and killed many people, including Pericles himself. Wow. That was a story. Gods of the household. Priam, king of Troy, takes refuge at the altar of Zeus Hercules. He's attacked by Neoptolemus before his wife Hecuba, seen from a red figure in 4 or 500 BCE. So the Greek household was protected by many gods. Zeus Hercules, or Zeus of the fence, was worshipped at a courtyard altar and supposedly protected the house from outside aggressors. Zeus Tesios, Zeus of the property, was linked to a house's family and their wealth. He was represented by a two-handled jar wrapped in white woolen fillet and filled with various seeds, water, and olive oil. Other gods include Hestia, who was the eponymous goddess of the domestic hearth, as well as Hermes and Apollo, who are both mentioned as being guardians of the front door. Representations of Heracles were also known to stand near houses, possibly to protect them from crime and the forces of evil. So, Priam, king of Troy, takes refuge at the altar of Zeus Hercules. He's attacked by Neoptolemus before his wife Hecuba. Okay. I'm taking small step by small step with this Greek culture.
A pasta was a corridor that connected a house's courtyard to its residential section. Archaeological evidence from the city of Olynthos reveals that pastas were added to Greek home design in the 5th century BCE.
5th century BCE. That's like the key time period. So this is a floor plan of the hill house in Delos from the 2nd century BCE. It says Greek houses were built on foundations of stone with mud bricks and woodwork. Their floors were packed with mud, with the exception of the the andron, which had a tiled floor, and their roofs were composed of tiles. In cities, houses were positioned next to one another and usually had a room or shop that opened up onto the street. Windows were normally only found on the first floor, but rooms were arranged so that air could circulate through them from the open courtyard. The houses were heated with braziers of charcoal, which also helped light surrounding rooms. Furniture, meanwhile, was very simple and consisted of couches, chairs, folding stools, tables, blankets, and cushions. Archaeological evidence also suggests that many other tools and objects were kept in the home, including vases, sieves, cauldrons, and basins. So 1 is the living room, 2 is the pastas, 3 is the court, 4 is the entrance. So when you open it's the courtyard. You got the pasta on your left. Number 1 is the living room. So your living room's all the way in the corner. So where's the bedroom? So maybe the bedroom is upstairs. Let me see. 5 is the kitchen. And then 6 is the stairs, probably going up to the bedroom. Let me not be this mercenary. Don't really fit with the theme right now. An Athenian orphan. Here we go. This is an Athenian orphan.
Greeks had no qualms about combining their work and their private lives, and many of them worked from home.
Oh, that's
Artisans
fire.
like blacksmiths, sculptors, and potters often had workshops in their houses.
Fire.
Some even operated small stores to sell their work. Similarly, doctors were known to treat patients in special offices located in their homes. Women
very
also
modern.
worked in the house and were responsible for making textiles, as well as producing clothes and supervising weaving, which was carried out by slaves. If the household was wealthy enough, they could even produce a surplus of textiles to sell in times of financial difficulty.
So this image is a blacksmith working in his workshop, seen from a red figured cup from 510 or between 510 and 500 BCE, which is called Archaic Greece. So it says Athenians supported themselves by carrying out a wide array of commercial and industrial activities. Most of the time, there was no distinction between where people worked and where they lived. For example, in Aristophanes' comedy, Lysistrata, the character of the tavern keeper is shown serving wine in his own residence. Similarly, according to Demosthenes, the general Conon ran an entire business in his house. Teachers could even have schools inside their homes, such as the father of Aeschines, who taught in elementary school in his house. Alright, so they work from home. At least a good amount of them did. Here we go, we're going back out into the...
The inner courtyard was the
courtyard,
nexus
yeah.
of the house.
That's what I thought
Functionally,
it was.
it allowed air to circulate and also provided access to most of the rooms. It also sometimes housed a well or a cistern that collected rainwater. In the center of the courtyard was an altar to Zeus Hercules, who served as the protector of the household. Women would often use the space to sew and cook, while children used it as a play area. Furthermore, if the family had pets or animals, the courtyard was where they were allowed to run free.
So I'm gonna call this daily life in archaic Greece, or archaic slash classical Greece, because that's what we're really dealing with. Archaic slash classical, and I gotta learn the distinction. Alright, based on scenes of household life depicted on ancient vases, Greek children had many different ways to entertain themselves. Artistic representations show them doing everything from spinning tops to riding a seesaw to playing knucklebones. Children also played with small figurines, animals, wheeled horses, carts, and dolls. Terracotta, or plaster copies of birds and other animals, were also common toys. Numerous dolls, such as a tiny figurine of a woman, have survived to this day. The dolls were designed with articulated joints in their arms and legs, which allowed children to manipulate them into a variety of positions. So this image is of young boys playing knucklebones. I'm not sure what that is, but it's a scene from an Athenian red figure of Oinoko. This is good, man. Just take this step by step and learn a little bit more about this history. So this is on the lower left, a young man pouring a libation over an altar, seen from a red-figured cup, 480 BCE, classical Greece. So let's take a look at the image. He's pouring his libations. It says religion was an important aspect of Greek private life. Though the walls of the house provided physical protection, the family needed divine protection as well, and for this they turned to Zeus. Every house had an altar dedicated to Zeus Herkios of the fence that the family could worship at by offering sacrifices and libations in the god's honor. Sacrifices were also performed in the house on special occasions like weddings, births, or for the festival of Zeus Tesios. The Greek dramatist Menander mentions that worshippers would circle the altar with sacrificial tools like a vessel of holy water. They sprinkled the water around the altar to purify it, then began the sacrifice proper. Household sacrifices could be animals, but also offerings of incense and vegetables. The ceremony of amphidromia celebrated the presentation of a newborn. It might have taken place in the courtyard. The ceremony was held when the baby was 5 days old and symbolized its acceptance into the family. I wonder if there were cases when the baby wasn't accepted, like if it had a deformity or something like that. Friends were invited to the occasion, and the house's exterior was decorated differently depending on the sex of the child. Olive branches indicated a boy, while garlands of wool signaled a girl. The most central part of the amphidromia was the circling the house's hearth with the newborn, followed by the presenting of the child to both the house's gods and the rest of the family. The newborn also received their name during the ceremony. Very interesting. Okay, very interesting. Maybe I underestimated the Greek culture a little bit. I said it was boring, but it's kind of interesting.
The bathroom was located in the back of the house. Much like today, it was used for cleaning and washing, although the Greeks used chamber pots instead of toilets. Most bathrooms had a luterion that could be filled with water for washing. Mirrors, razors, strigils, and sponges could also be found in the bathroom, along with small vases called arebaloi, which were usually filled with perfume or oil.
So this is a young woman in a bathroom scene from a red figurine, Kilix. Excuse me. Okay, so a young woman in a bathroom scene, 500 BCE, which is archaic Greece. So I guess from 499 onward is classical. That's my guess. Let me see. Let me look it up. Archaic versus classical. Archaic versus classical Greece. So it says archaic Greece goes to 480. I wonder what is the difference. Okay, what is the difference? In contrast with the classical period in which the literary culture of Athens dominated the Greek world, the archaic poetic tradition was geographically spread out. Okay, whatever. I don't really care that much to go that deep into it. Take it step by step with this. Okay, so okay, let me take a look. This is the bathroom.
Greek homes had kitchens where the family's meals were prepared. The Greeks did not often eat meat, except during special occasions like banquets or after sacrifices. They had mainly a grain-based diet, eating staples such as bread, porridge, or a barley cake called maza. They also occasionally ate poultry, fish, and other seafood, as well as fruits, vegetables, goat milk and cheese, and olive oil. Food was cooked on a tripod, or sometimes in a klibanos, which was a sort of mobile oven. Other cooking implements included braziers, mortars and pestles, a spit to hold food over a fire, platters, and frying pans. The family also used the kitchen to store food in containers called pithoi.
Okay, terracotta figurine of cooking scene with butcher and a cook. This is from 525 to 475, archaic Greece. So we got a cooking scene. According to Hippocrates, which sounds like hypocrite, some Greeks ate one meal a day, while others ate two. The main meal was called a deipnon and was eaten in the evening, while the second possible meal was called ariston and was normally eaten around noon. The deipnon was made up of three parts: a cereal staple called cytos, a main dish called opson, and patos, otherwise known as wine. The opson usually consisted of meat or fish, while the wine was served with desserts like dried fruits, nuts, and cakes. The Greek diet was based on the Mediterranean triad: grains, grapes, and olives. Interesting. You know what? I underestimated the Greek culture, man. I did. It's interesting. They seem like a pretty, you know what, let me not make any assumptions too soon. I gotta learn more. But so far it's interesting. So how do I get over there now? Let's see. We got 2 more stations.
Symposia were major social institutions in Greece. They were drinking parties held exclusively for men. The party took place in the men's section of the house, the andron, where residents and guests reclined on special couches called klinai. Food was served on low tables set in front of the couches, while wine was placed in a crater in the center of the room. During a symposium, men drank, sang, had philosophical discussions, and played games like kotobos. Musicians, dancers, and even courtesans were often welcomed to it. Symposia were major social institutions in Greece. They were drinking parties held exclusively.
Alright, so it was gonna say music dancers and even courtesans were often welcome to attend as well. However, wives and daughters were always excluded, so it's male only. So they frequently separate the genders, or the sexes. The most popular party game at Symposia was the kotobos. The game consisted of flicking an almost empty wine cup to project the remainder of the wine at a specific target. Okay? The target was generally a terracotta vessel, either floating in a bowl of water or balanced on a stand. Okay? And the objective of the game was to use the wine dregs to sink the vessel or knock it down. Another popular symposium game involved the singing of scholia. Scholia were drinking songs sung by symposiists in turns. Participants would pass around a sprig of laurel or myrtle. Whoever held the sprig would start singing, then pass it suddenly to another person who would do their best to continue the song. Yeah, they got a cool culture, man. It's not as bad as I expected. So that's them playing that little spit game.
And as well. However, wives and daughters were always excluded.
Right. All right, we got one more station. So this is the stairs. Where's the bedroom?
The Pyrgos, or upper stories, was the women's quarter of the house, where they could pursue their activities and observe the city without being seen themselves. The rooftops were also used in a special rite called the Adonia, a private celebration held in honor of Adonis, which was reserved for women. At the beginning of spring, women filled terracotta pots with soil and lettuce seeds, then climbed a ladder to place the pots on the rooftop. These pots served as the women's very own Gardens of Adonis.
So this is a fragment of red figure leaves with scene depicting women celebrating the Adonia festival 430 to 420 BCE, classical Greece. This is in the Louvre Museum, Paris. So it says the Adonia festival was linked closely to the myth of Adonis, a mortal who was beloved by the goddess Aphrodite. After incurring Artemis's wrath, Adonis was killed by a boar, and from his spilled blood bloomed flowers. The commemoration of Adonis' tragic death was central to the Adonia celebration. The participating women danced, sang, and ritually mourned Adonis by setting pots of plants on their rooftops that quickly germinated and withered. Because of this, the phrase Gardens of Adonis was often used proverbially by Greeks to describe something trivial and wasteful. After the rooftop ceremony, the women descended into the streets for a funeral procession. When the procession was over, they buried small statues of the gods, then celebrated by drinking wine and playing games. Okay, I don't really understand, but whatever. I'm just wondering, like, why they buy into that, like, what makes them buy into it. I didn't understand that
the
one.
Pyrgos, or upper stories,
All right, so we already
was
did
the
this.
women, the rooftop at the beach.
So that's the end of the tour, right? Let me see. Yeah, I think I just finished that one. Oh, here she is right here.
I hope you now have a better understanding of the routines and home life of the Greek people.
Yeah.
What would you like to do next?
A tour quiz. Oh. Bring it. Let's go.
Then let's start with a simple question. Which group of people celebrated the Adonia?
The women.
Correct. The Adonia was celebrated by women of all stations. Let's move on to the next question. Which of the following was known as the protector of the household?
Okay. Ooh, I know it's one of the Zeuses. It's Zeus Hercules.
Yes, Zeus Hercules protected the household, and an altar to the god usually stood in the center of the house's courtyard. On to the final question. Which of the following was not located in the bathroom?
What was not located in the bathroom? The Luterion. Wait. What's the Luterion? Damn.
The Luterion was a water basin that was located in the bathroom.
I wasn't
Try a
paying
different
attention to
answer.
that one. I can't even remember that one. I must have zoned out. I know mirrors are in the bathroom.
Correct. The Klivanos was a mobile oven usually found in the kitchen.
Oh, okay,
It
yeah.
seems you really know your way around Greek homes. Well done, Wanderer.
All right, I went like 4 for 5.
Farewell, Wanderer, and thank you for visiting my city.
All right, see, out of all the cultures though, out of all the 4 games Assassin's Creed I played, so you got Mirage, you got Valhalla, you got Origins, and now this one, Odyssey. This culture is the least interesting culture to me. So less interesting than the Iraq culture, less interesting than the Egypt culture, less interesting than the Britannia culture, and yeah, I'll give it number 4 for now. It's not the most exciting study, but hey, I'm pretty sure it'll help me piece something together. So why not? Let me see if there's anything else. Dang, that's only 1 out of 9 tours on the daily life. So hold on, there's 13, 18, 23. There's 30 tours. That was one. Oh, damn. Okay, they put in some work on this game. They put in some work on here. See, next is wine. Damn. Yeah, it's gonna take me a little bit to get through this one. Let me see. Yep, and they all got decent, look, 13 minutes, 16 minutes, 13 minutes, 10 minutes. Yeah, they put in a lot of work. Let me see this one. Politics. Oh, we're gonna definitely go into politics. Social classes. I gotta learn the social classes. So when I come back on here, I'm gonna get into politics and philosophy. Social classes, politics, democracy, School of Greece, philosophy. Yeah, those are gonna be good, because that's what they're known for, is their philosophy. Then you got art, religion, and myths. I don't really care about this part that much, but I'll still do it. Battles and wars, Famous cities, I guess. It's alright. I mean, this is gonna. I'm not gonna zoom through this like I did the other games, because this one ain't really that interesting to me, to be honest. So I'm gonna keep this one short. Might come back with the Egypt and do more work on maybe the pyramids or something like that. Deuce.